Christy, welcome to Podcastina.
Oh, thank you for having me, Galina, Rivina.
Thank you for doing it. Do you love that I just went so hard in the paint with the Ina-ness?
Oh no, I love it. When I found out what the name was, I laughed out loud.
Oh good, I'm glad. I'm
Several years ago,
yeah.
when you told me you had a podcast, I was like, what's it called?
Yeah, it's
and I laughed. I was like, this is great.
After doing not a ton of research or thinking about it, I just was like, you know what? I want it to be my name. I want it to be something very vague so that I could do whatever I wanted with the show. And so now I've just kind of, to make my life simpler, I just call it Podcastina because I feel like it's an insane level of delusion to walk around being like, Galina, Rivina, Podcastina, even though that is what it's called.
No, I like it. And I think you should lean harder into your own name.
You know what I'm going to get eventually? I'm going to get, this is so inside baseball, but those fancy podcasting microphones where people have that box thing at the bottom and they have their logo.
Yeah.
Logo, oh my god, they have their logo.
This is the first podcast we are recording today.
That's right.
No inside baseball here. Have the logo at the end, and and then when we make the big bucks, we'll have a neon sign with the name.
I want to be a neon sign girly. I want a big whole structural, architectural element to this.
Yeah.
This is just supposed to turn into an HGTV show. It was never supposed to be a podcast.
Amazing. Well, I do like the backlighting and the hot pink, and I brought this blanket, number one, to cover my feet, because I have a weird thing about putting my feet on camera for free.
I don't even think it's your weird thing. I think it's just the way that the world is. You know better than to expose your feet
They're
for
too
free.
Many weirdos. And once somebody offers to compensate me, then we'll talk. But yeah, I also brought this blanket from your chairs to contribute to the sleepover girly energy, which I really like. We've got a dog. We've got a couch. You know what's hilarious is easily many decades ago when I was a child, I was doing this exact same thing, except I didn't do it for consumption. Like my friends and I would have like one of those Walkmen, which is so crazy because I'm 15 years old. No, so crazy because I'm 25. No, we would like have a Walkman and like make fake radio shows. Did you ever used to do that when you were a kid?
We did.
I'm going to try my best to not direct your podcast.
It's perfectly all right.
I have major Virgo energy of like, all right, we're going to do that, like, because I'm the one who edits it, and so I'm always thinking in terms of editing it.
I am
so
I'm
like, that's going to be not a clean edit. Can you say, like, I'm going to ask the question again so I could have like a clean, and it's just like, hey, how about you live in the moment, Christy?
No, I'm glad that you're like that because I am like that, and I feel like I learned so much from having to edit, and so I've kind of become a bit of a control freak in that way. When people will come on and they're maybe not cognizant of little hand noises that they make, or they'll tap their jewelry on the table or something, and my editor brain just goes, oh, it's going to be so hard for me to fix in post, please stop doing that.
Yeah, I think that too. And like sometimes I'll just interrupt and be like, hey, can you stop crunching your water bottle in your hand next to the microphone? And that's how I have such a reputation as such a chill gal. That's what they call me in school, chill gal Christy. It's so weird to like be somebody that like I have such intense Virgo tendencies, and it was so rewarded in my last job. And
what
now
do you mean by Virgo tendencies? Because I'm not a big subscriber to astrology, so...
No problem. And you know what? I shouldn't be using that as a shorthand anyway, as if it's objective reality for everyone. So, and it's not. So, okay, Virgo's, the reputation is like very analytical, attention to detail, perfectionism, and I'm all of those things, and I tend to try to control more than I can, and then I have a harder time delegating, and then I have like extreme precise, like perfectionistic, and then I'm usually like pretty punctual, really reliable, like all these things. So then when people are late, you know, all the time, like I I can like handle people being late a little bit, but like when somebody's totally late all the
What is their
time,
whole
then you just have to
personality?
be like, okay, I don't need to get there on time because I know this. And then you even like build in a 15-minute cushion and they're still late. And then like so it's like, so this person was really gonna be 40 minutes late for me. I'm so glad I didn't anyway. But yeah, that's sort of just the perfectionism and the sort of anal retentive tendencies.
Okay, I didn't know those were Virgo things.
Virgo and Capricorn are like the two structure, organization stereotypes of the
Interesting.
zodiac.
So I'll take your astrology and I'll raise you evolutionary psychology.
Let's do
and can it be explained away by the fact that Virgo birthdays always coincide with the beginning of school, and so you're being celebrated at the same time that the beginning of a routine where it benefits you to be that way
Absolutely.
is starting. Do you think the relationship is that?
I mean, I can't rule it out.
Or like beginning of the year too for Capricorns too. It's like everyone is on their shit about these are the plans I'm making, I'm goal setting, I'm being diligent and organized, and then it's like maybe an ev-psych explanation of your favorite part of the year because it's your birthday also coincides with good organization.
I will allow it. I mean, I know we both are digging from baseless, we're digging from empty wells, basically, and we're like, look at this, what about this? It's like, sure, why not?
Yeah, well here's the thing, I've never been able to get into astrology because I'm a Gemini and because I've been discriminated against by people who are into astrology.
Ah, I see, okay. That makes sense. Why would you subscribe to a group that, or to like a school of thought that you believe that you were predisposed to be excluded from or like hated? Yeah, no, I was never an astrology person ever, and I always thought it was like so stupid. And only in the last like couple of years, I started. Just, I think because I started doing comedy, I needed to have a little bit of delusion and faith in the not seen. I started widening my like, all right, fine, maybe, I don't know. I can't remember if it's Toni Morrison who calls it like the discredited wisdom of discredited people.
Ooh.
You know, like just like, it's an ancient modality. It's an ancient discipline, you know, that people have been using for thousands of years to plant their crops and plan their lives and do a lot of things. So I do think that there is an element of science, but I think that the way that it's permeated pop culture has definitely taken a lot of its credibility out of it and become, you know, just pretty diluted and diluted. Diluted and diluted. And so, but I do think it's a good tool. I like would use it like as a Myers-Briggs almost, or it's something you use as a way to evaluate. And I don't know, I just started trying to be a little bit more open to things that aren't peer-reviewed medical and scientific studies, you know, where that's like where I've always been such like a facts, law, research person. And now that I'm also a comedian, I can't sit here all day calculating the odds. I'd never get out of bed.
No, you wouldn't. And it's good to open yourself up to the possibility of things we don't know about, because at any given point somebody discovers something that doesn't have empirical evidence to back it up. And what you and I have like bonded in so much in our friendship is manifesting, which obviously some aspects of it, the meditative aspects, the positive thinking, the neurons that fire together, wire together, that part is scientifically backed.
Yes.
But a lot of it is still woo-woo as hell, and I feel like I'm always having to kind of defend it, and I defend it by explaining, oh, well, if truly nothing else, if you can't actually, which I do believe you can magnetically pull things in, but the grander picture of subscribing to manifesting beliefs and positive thinking is that you do actually like build the new grooves in your brain.
Yes.
Where thinking better makes you nicer to be around, which no matter what is going to bring things in, because if you're a more pleasant person, if you have a better vibe, like a vibe is scientific. It's not some bullshit hipster, hacky sack incense burning thing. Like, vibes are real.
It's true. And it's interesting, like, the more you actually hear about these studies and more science that comes out, actually, the science is catching up to sort of what the woo-woo people already know. Like, I was listening to another podcast, sorry to bring up other podcasts on your podcast.
This is a pro-podcast podcast.
But they were talking about how stress is actually contagious in the sense that your pheromones are giving off, like, stress hormones as well. So, like, if you're very close to somebody, you could, like, feel their stress. In the same way that, like, women who are close together and live together, their periods will sync up. If the person in the cubicle next to you is chronically stressed out and, like, frazzled, you can actually, quote unquote, catch their stress and, like, absorb that stressful hormone because they have, like, their, like, little bubble, their radius is literally infused with, like, the stress hormones and stuff like that. Of, like, yeah, that's what we would have called bad vibes, in any other situation, and stuff like manifestation and all that stuff. Like, we hadn't heard about neuroplasticity 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And now it's like the number one thing that, physicians are using to encourage people to change their habits and their ways of being, and to give them hope that, like, they're not just, like, doomed from the start of whatever's happened to you or whatever trauma or an injury. Like, it doesn't have to be determinative of how you live the rest of your life. And I love that.
I love that too. It's so freeing and it adds up so much. Like, I'm so pro all of this science and even the non-science, the woo-woo parts of it, because it's something along the lines of, like, 1,500 potentially words per minute that, like, float through our own brains. You're talking to yourself more than you're talking to any other person.
So true.
So if you're being mean to yourself all day long, you're contributing to having a bad life. And I'm kind of becoming almost callous about how quickly I will guillotine the fuck out of people, like, out of my life, if they have bad vibes all the time. If someone's super negative, I don't even care what it looks like. I will distance myself from them. And I've actually been a little more encouraging, I will say, of my other friends when they're kind of keeping someone difficult in their lives, at pointing that out and being like, why do you keep this person around when all they do is suck the fucking air right out of the room?
I'm amazed that you still have me in your life then, because I feel like I'm, like, such a generally negative person. I think what's funny, I'm a pretty negative person, but I also know how to, like, not direct it at people.
Maybe that's the difference.
Or
maybe I don't feel you trying to drag others down.
Yeah, I don't try to drag other people down or be like, well, that's a stupid idea. Like, I have, like, a lot of worries and a lot of anxiety, and I'm negative about, like, well, statistically that's very unlikely to happen, and, oh, well, this probably won't happen for me. But first of all, I'm trying to kick that habit, but second of all, even though that used to, in my last profession as an attorney, it actually was such an asset to be a worrier and a problem spotter and to foresee the things that can happen 5 years down the line when somebody breaches the contract and you want to plan for that, I'm realizing that, like, you can do that, but not let that be, like, the focus. And I've always been pretty good about, like, turning off the faucet and not, like, I haven't been perfect about it, but, like, I try not to drag other people down with the negativity. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, as you said, you are the longest relationship you have had and will ever have. So you need to also be pleasant to be around to you. Mm-hmm. And that I have only started really making a priority.
There's such an emphasis on, I actually just keep getting targeted by these new Joe Dispenza clips where he's talking about, and I don't live alone, but he's talking about how people are, when they're alone by themselves, it's the ultimate test of emotional regulation because there's no outside person feeding into what your energy is going to be like that day. So if you can emotionally regulate in a space by yourself, that's really what's going to show you what your ability to emotionally regulate around other people is going to be like, because you're effectively like a clean slate, right? When someone else is in the space, like my roommate was going through like a breakup, and so she was just really down, and a couple days into her being super down about it, I was feeling myself feeling off kilter.
Wow.
And I was trying to do inventory of what was going on with me and why I was feeling weird, until I realized that I was just picking up on her stuff, and it was like, oh fuck, you know, like, I always want to make sure I'm there for people I care about, and present, and like a good influence while they're going through something, and not make it harder. But at what point do I have to then give myself space, because it's like I can't help but to pick up on the things that are going on around me.
Yeah, it's so true. I think that's the scariest part about the concept of marriage for me.
Same.
Is that, like, obviously in sickness and in health, you know, the ups and the downs, you're there for each other. Life is not going to be, you know, sunshine and roses all the time. And ideally you pick somebody you want to grow with, and that has the same sort of mindset, you know, a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. And, like, you have the same commitment to working on yourselves. But every now and then I'm like, what if somebody just turns into somebody, or just decides that they're gonna be that person that doesn't try anymore, and they want to become like a stagnant person that doesn't care about changing and getting better anymore. Like, that would be terrifying.
Yeah.
And, like, I believe that, you know, your vow obligates you to, like, stay with that person and tough it out, but, like, at a certain point, if it's draining the life force out of you, and it's been, like, years and years and years and years and years, and it's just like a cinder block in the ocean tied to your ankle, like, it would be very hard to not, you know, want to cut that loose.
It would, and it's why it's so important in any relationship before any kind of commitment is
to have a prenup.
To have a prenup, yes, and we'll circle back because I want to ask you about your, like, attorney experience. I'm so fascinated about that. But also just knowing how people are in conflict is so important, not just in romantic relationships, but in friendships too. I think that I've seen so many relationships go on and they look a certain way, and then the people run into their first conflict, and that's when you, like, really see a very important side of somebody is how they handle that conflict and how they work through it. And until you know what they're going to present in that situation, like, you can't marry someone you've never had a fight with. That might sound like a good relationship, but if you don't know how that person handles a fight, no matter how good things are, it's coming eventually. And if they don't handle conflict well, or they don't handle difficulties in their life well, like, good fucking luck.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you've been in a fight with somebody, or at least an argument, or disagreement, or tension, you do not know them well. And you have to have at least, like, one difficult conversation to feel like you can really... You shouldn't have very many conversations before you get married, but, like, before you can consider somebody, like, a truly close friend, you have to have at least some kind of difficult conversation. It doesn't have to be a fight.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm, like, thinking of all my really close friendships, and, like, even though I haven't had any, like, one of my best friends, we haven't had any, like, real fights, but there was, like, a period of time where I felt like we were really distant, and it was hurting my feelings, and we didn't talk for a while, and then when we sort of reunited, I was like, hey, this, like, really, really hurt me. And so the fact that you can have that conversation, I think, shows that, like, okay, this is a person I can keep in my life. But I just can't. I think what's hard is when I was dating somebody many years ago who was, like, a very even-keeled person, and I thought that they were dealing with conflict really well. And then I just found out years later that they were completely detached from everything that they were feeling, and didn't know how they were feeling. And that's terrifying.
That's a worse problem to have than just having a conflict and then talking it through and finding resolve to it, is someone that doesn't know how they're feeling, or even worse, someone that's so removed from their feelings that they make you question your feelings, and you feel unsafe bringing your feelings to them, because now you're walking on eggshells, and now it's like, not abuse, but it's skirting around. It's on the perimeter of abuse, you know?
Uncomfortable, to say the least. Yeah. I think that's something I realized is really important like self-awareness, it's very cliche, but like self-awareness is really important. And I have many flaws, but one of, I would think, my strong suits is that I'm very self-aware. I know how I'm feeling, and I usually know why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and I'm able to actually know in real time how I'm feeling and why. And if not, I will take that space to like journal and figure it out and organize it and outline it, almost like I'm making an argument. And I'll like write down bullet points about how I'm feeling, and then I'll write down like counter arguments or counter evidence, so like evidence for and against, you know. And I'm good at processing my emotions like that. And then this person that I was dating, I'd be like, hey, you seem like off, what's going on? And they'd be like, I don't know. And like they'd be off for a couple days, and I'd be like, what's going on? And they'd be like, I don't know. And then like a week later, they'd be like, I think it's this. And I'd be like, how do you live?
I'm more like
not
you.
Like knowing, like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like being able to, I realize that it's several components. It's number one, it's the ability to know how you're actually feeling. There's like a detection component. And then there's the ability to actually articulate how you're feeling to another person, which is a whole nother skill. And I think this person liked both. And I need somebody who's both.
I need them to read Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown.
Yes.
Which is just a giant book filled with vocabulary on how to label feelings correctly. I'm kind of like you, where I will go above and beyond. I had like a Karen moment the other day where I just was so frustrated.
Tell us your Karen moment.
I'll share my Karen moment and then weigh in the comments on whether I was wrong for this or not. But I was down in the common area of my apartment building, which happens to have a pool table, which I enjoy very much. Not a lot of people use the pool table, but my grandpa and I play pool at home. That game means a lot to me because I associate it with him.
Aww.
It makes me really happy. And it was always, they had a pool table that had like shitty felt on it, and I had like really wanted to hook him up for his birthday and refelt the table. My family ended up doing that for him anyways.
Oh, lovely.
But it's like an expensive, pool tables are expensive, and refelting a pool table is very expensive. So the other day in the common area in the apartment were some teenage girls, way too old to be doing this. Like I'm talking 15, 16-year-old girls, climbing all over the pool table with their shoes on, just like raging, being obnoxious. They had already pissed me off because they were being so loud while I was in the sauna trying to relax, and I had headphones in.
15-year-olds live in this building?
No, I don't even think these girls live here. I don't know what the hell they were doing.
Okay.
Somebody wasn't watching these kids, but for whatever reason, there was like
a
cohort of high school age
cohort
girls.
Of co-eds.
Yeah, they were being really, really loud, so I was already irritated because I could hear them over my headphones in the sauna, so they already, tainted my sauna experience. And then I go out and I see them climbing all over the fucking pool table, and I called the leasing office and I was like, you gotta send someone to do something about these teenage girls climbing all over. Like, it's not okay. And I got so overwhelmed, and my nervous system was deregulated. I was like having a very strong reaction, and I was like, why am I so pissed at these girls for climbing all over this pool table? And I realized it was because it's meaningful to me because of my relationship with my grandpa.
Yeah, it's not just some random table you can wipe down. Yeah. It's a specific...
So I was glad I at least figured that out, why it upset me so deeply. I'm like, this is upsetting me as if they're climbing on my pool table, even though I don't own it. But I feel like I have some sense of ownership over it. And it's like hard for me to see people be freely obnoxious because I was so reserved as a kid too, that for some reason it just kind of irks me to see kids misbehaving and nobody stepping in.
Yeah, I actually have the same. In general, I think I was a pretty respectful kid. And like the one like mischief I got up to when I was young was when I was like 16 or 17. My friend and I, who I was telling you about, like, we would like to drive around her neighborhood and honk. That was the worst thing I did. We would just like lay on the horn and drive around and like blast that one Lord of the Rings sound track on.
This is so dorky.
But it's like a very apocalyptic. It was like really stupid, and we just like drive around like maybe for like 10 minutes. Not that long, but just like laying on the horn and laughing and like whatever. Very disruptive, but like. Not a long time, and like nobody was hurt. No property was damaged. You know what I mean? It was just like silly, but like other than that, I'm just like, no, I was such a rule follower. Like, why would you just like don't bother people. I don't want to
I'm that
get in
way
trouble.
too. Yeah. I hate ruckus, which makes me feel 1,000 years old to say that, but I can't stand ruckus. I'm like, be quiet. People are trying to enjoy the space and you're being obnoxious. Like, go somewhere, go in an area where it's okay to be obnoxious.
Yeah. I will say I'm less obnoxious now, but I think in my 20s, like teens and 20s, I was definitely loud. I was like a loud voice and didn't embarrass super easily in public. So I was okay being like loud, but when it came to like, dancing on tables or like ruining things or furniture or property, like I wouldn't do that. But
yeah, I mostly didn't do stuff like that. In the couple of instances when I did, I got shamed for it, which I'm not saying is, I can't bring up Brene Brown and then be like, shame is the answer, obviously it's not. But like my friend Danielle and I in high school, we had vandalized a table. We were like dumb and I think wrote like, for a good time, call whoever, and it was like these tables at the mall, that didn't necessarily belong to anyone but belonged to the mall, and we got busted for it and like had to go to court. It was like a whole thing.
Like juvie?
Yes.
Oh man.
I mean, I was never gonna get sentenced to go to juvie. Obviously, it's like the smallest.
Juvenile court is what I mean to say.
Yeah, but still, I ended up in trouble for that. So it's like the smallest infraction I got in trouble for. So I was always like, okay, well, I better not do anything like that again. And then I got licensed. I got my real estate license when I was like 18 or 19, and so I knew going in to that I couldn't get like a misdemeanor or a felony because I would lose my license. So I was always very careful to not commit any kind of crime that would then like potentially threaten a livelihood.
Yeah.
Which brings me to, what kind of law did you practice?
I practiced, I did commercial litigation and employment law. So like lots of contract stuff, advising employers on employment laws, stuff like that. It's funny that you say though about the license thing, because same with me, knowing that I would get my bar license eventually, and then if I do anything, I could get disbarred. I was very, very careful about that. But if you want some hot goss from 10 years ago, there was a group of people that went to Vegas at my law school, and I didn't go. But apparently 2 of the guys got very, very drunk, and this is my second year of law school, this was like the talk of the town, the friggin' century. They got super, super drunk, and they went into, what's that hotel that has all the birds? There's like a tropical,
Tropicana?
maybe, is that it's called the Tropicana?
I don't... I've been to most of the hotels on the Strip, but that's not one of them.
There's a famous hotel. Yeah. Ricky Ricardo plays there all the time.
Okay, it must be the
No, I'm just kidding.
It sounds right.
Tropicana is the club in I Love Lucy. Okay, I don't know. I can't remember what the hotel is, but they have they're very famous for having like an exotic bird sanctuary in the hotel.
Oh, I no longer know what hotel.
Okay. God, it's called like the Paradise or the Mirage or the Flamingo. I don't know what it is. We'll look it up later. Throw it in the comments if you've been there. Yeah. This podcast is sponsored by debauchery. But yeah, these 2 guys got really drunk, and I guess they somehow let themselves into the bird sanctuary somehow, got their hands on a rare endangered bird called the helmeted guinea fowl. And
of course, the helmeted guinea fowl. I know this bird.
Yes, we know, and everyone knows the bird. And you know the one. And they were like tossing it around and playing with the bird, and it somehow ended up beheaded. And because it was an exotic, rare bird, they got arrested. And
well, they should. I mean, that is straight up animal cruelty.
Yeah, no. First of all, they would have gotten arrested regardless, probably for like the breaking and entering or whatever they were doing, the trespassing, and also for the animal, dismemberment. But I think it was an extra layer. I think the fact that it was exotic kicked it up to like a higher level of
grand larceny or
stealing the bird. But it ended up costing them because they got arrested, and it constituted what California deems a crime of moral turpitude.
Ooh.
And that is something that goes on your, so like people don't realize that when you take the bar exam, there's actually two components. There's an ethics component that you can take before you're even done with law school, and then there's the actual like
The
law
bar
that you take. So the ethics one, like you have to, if you have any like infractions on your record, you have to answer for them. So anyway, these two dudes, who we called like the beheaders for the rest of the for the rest of
Great
law
name
school.
for a band, by the way.
Yeah, you know, and it was just like really sad, and I kind of felt bad for them, but I was also like, man, I've been drunk several times and not beheaded any birds.
Yeah,
yet.
same.
And so, like, it was so wild that's like what they chose to do. And anyway, it caused them a delay. I think they were able eventually to get their bar license, but they had to wait.
I don't know that I want to
years.
hire an attorney that's beheaded a bird. As an adult, too. Like, maybe if you fuck up and do something like that as a kid. But
Can you imagine Googling your attorney and then being like, oh, they were arrested for beheading a bird in Vegas?
I don't want an attorney who needs an attorney. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It was, you know, what we would like file away under the category of white nonsense. These two white men who were just like, we could do this. Anyway, R.I.P. to both of them. R.I.P. to that bird. They didn't, but the dudes are still alive, but the bird is not. But it was just like really wild because for the whole, it was such a, like, nobody is nerdier than friggin' law students. Because they're like, oh, this is like a fact pattern in criminal law. Let's spot all the crimes. You know, like people were having a field day, and like it was like one of the biggest things that happened to us when we were at law school. Anyway, sorry, I feel like I've been truly monologuing and not being concise about.
No, that's the point. My favorite part of hosting a podcast is that I don't have to talk too much.
Yeah, something that I become anal retentive about is like landing the fucking plane. Like, get to the point. And if I were listening to the story I just told, I would have been a little annoyed. Like, what happened?
But it had so
Hurry
much.
up.
It had crime.
It had crime. It had exotic
consequences.
birds.
It had birds. It had Vegas.
It had Vegas. It was so wild. And I do think about helmeted guinea fowl every so often. I'm like, how can I incorporate this into my stand-up somehow?
First, you would have to explain what it is. It doesn't even sound like a bird name.
I know, right? But fowl, that's, you know.
No, yeah, I suppose so. But my favorite conspiracy theory is birds aren't real.
I heard about it like a while ago and was like, oh, ha ha ha. And then yesterday I actually Googled it for the first time to like really read the Wikipedia article. And that's fun? Really hilarious.
It's a very fun conspiracy
I love it.
theory.
So, how long have you subscribed to it?
No, I don't subscribe to
just
it.
kidding,
It's just my favorite of all
Yeah,
the conspiracy
I do
theories
like
because
it.
I think it's pretty harmless and I think it's pretty goofy. And then I did see the other day, and I assume this video was real, but it was like AI. It was birds. It was actual robotic birds that some tech company launched that move like real birds, and I immediately thought of the conspiracy theory, and I'm like, see, this is what they were talking about the whole time, and now it's actually happening.
That's very funny. Yeah. I believe one of the people involved in that joke bought Enron, or bought the trademark to Enron.
Oh,
And
I
is
heard
now
about
like
this.
the CEO of Enron, which
Yeah.
is hilarious.
That young guy.
Yeah.
He's a very young guy.
Yes, correct.
Kind of cute.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's really unattractive to buy Enron. That's a turnoff for me. It's a nail breaker. But I if it's a satire, it's brilliant. I watched a TikTok where he's like, we're gonna take Enron into a new direction. Like,
Oh, yeah, I
that's
saw
very
that.
funny.
That is funny.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
What are your red flags then, besides buying Enron?
That's about it. Beheading birds and buying Enron. Everything else is fair game. No, okay, red flags. Oh boy, there are so many. When somebody is not able to emotionally regulate, and kind of, when somebody's like really, really effusive and love bomby. That's really freaking me out. Theo agrees. I mean, Theo. Monty. I met a dog named Theo recently.
Oh. Come here, Bubba. You're not going to bark. Come here. Come sit on the couch. Come here. Come into the middle. Come here. Come on, good boy.
Come here, you sled dog.
There we go. Good job.
I believe you that they were sled dogs.
That's such a big one for me, too. There was a guy that I thought was cute, and then I saw him slam a door, and that signaled that signaled to me that he can't emotionally regulate, because if you're taking it out on a door, what else aren't you able to control about yourself?
And yeah, it's like we've all slammed doors, but just do it when you're alone. You know what I mean? Like the rage I express in the privacy of my own home, like screaming into a pillow, I would not do in front of other people. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so there's also that element of like, do you see yourself right now? So I think yeah, the love bombing has been a big thing for me because it's happened to me a couple times in the last few years, and I've just been like, oh, I don't like this. I also, red flag for me is, I don't know, just anyone who just like has really, like, anyone's just like really disrespectful about any particular group of people. Saying anything about like a particular race or religion or ethnicity, or saying anything about like women and making big generalizations, even though I was like, that's a white nonsense. But you know what I mean? Like in a real derogatory way of just implying that like they're superior or that one group is superior to another. Like that is really weird. And I think I mean it mostly in my experience when it's how men talk about women.
Yeah, it's just so indicative of a larger problem because they're kind of just giving you a peek behind the curtain of what their belief system is. Yeah. If it's that problematic, then it's going to tell you what their expectations for you are going to be in a relationship, what their expectations of people in general, what, you know, if you were to like want a family, is that how they're going to treat your daughter or whoever? Like, it's just so grossly uncool. And I don't know that kind of thing can be taught. Oh, excuse me, sorry. Monty agrees that he's not sure if that kind of thing can be. I don't know. Can you really ever change someone's beliefs? They have to want to change it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like if guys will be like, yeah, my last ex was a crazy bitch. You know,
like what did you do to her? What did you do to her to make her?
Yeah, like ooh, I don't. Usually when a guy says somebody's crazy, it's because, like...
he made her crazy.
Or she, like, exhibited any emotion or vocalized, like, an intention. It's like, you're hysterical! You know, like, stuff like that, where it's just like, okay. I'm trying to think of other... It's so funny, I really do have quite a lot of red flags, and more than I should. Mm-hmm. It's like, Christy, you're not a walking green flag yourself, Christy. But... let's talk about some green flags. What are green flags for you?
Oh, sure. Green flags.
I like that this podcast is now just a Hinge prompt. My biggest green flag. Guess what this picture's from? Sorry, go ahead. Green flag.
And this is, I guess, because I was thinking of a red flag, so I'll take the flip of it. A very anti-big personalities. Because I think, like, really gregarious, really have to be, like, the loudest person in the room. That kind of, you know, attention-seeking personalities. Because to me, I feel like evidence has shown me in my life with men and women who are just really, really loud and boisterous, that the Venn diagram between a boisterous personality and a personality disorder is almost a perfect circle with just a little couple slivers on the side.
Hoping I fall in that sliver because I'm pretty loud. But
I don't regard you as that type of big personality. Like
So what do you mean by big person?
I don't want to throw any comedians under the bus. I'll give you some names after.
Okay.
Maybe I'm trying to think of publicly who's like a big, obnoxious. No, I don't want to necessarily just like shit on one person.
Yeah, don't do that.
But what I'm thinking of, because I see it happen, like a friend of mine was dating this guy, and it was so obvious that he wished that he was a cult leader. Like, there were just things about his behavior that obviously this guy is just like really thirsting to be regarded a certain type of way. Or the type of person that wears, I don't know if you've seen how like Jordan Peterson wears these insane jackets that are really bright and have a lot of designs on them, and there's something about
like the peacocking.
Yes, there's that where someone, because I've been at a party before where this guy was like wearing really crazy sweatpants, and I asked him, I go, hey, what's with these crazy rainbow sweatpants? And he goes, well, they're a talking point, and so that's how I get women to talk to me. Like, he was literally peacocking.
That's literally
it's manipulation.
Well, that's what the game or whatever that is called.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah, that also reminds me, I met a comedian, not naming names, but he was telling me about how he was like, oh, yeah, he like said something negative to me in like a flirty way, and I was like, are you negging me right now? And he was like, I called him on it, and he was like, and then he was like telling me a story about how like he dated this woman, and he was like negging her, and I was like,
ew.
I was just like, I think that's kind of a bummer, because it means that you're preying after people with really low self-esteem. And he looked me in the eye and said, well, if that's all you can get, you're not going to be picky. And I was like, that's sad, guy. That's real sad. Oof. And it was just like, he was so aware that he was scraping from the bottom of the barrel because that's all he could get. And the negging, it's like so transparent to me that I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, are you trying to insult me because you think I'm going to infer that you're superior to me and that will make me want you? Get out of my face.
Oh, it's just so bad. It's the type of, and it's not even that, because negging's a whole separate issue. But back to like the boisterous personalities, it's the type of person who, when you're in a room with them, they have to have the spotlight, and so everybody else is kind of fighting for time to talk because that person just always has to be talking. And when I meet people like that, it's such a turnoff romantically and for friendship, because those people always end up being histrionic or narcissistic or fucking bipolar. Like, not that there's, people can't help certain things, but it's just so indicative of an untreated personality disorder where it's like, why is it that you have to have the attention on you all the time?
Right. And sort of same side of, or part of that equation is like people who can't listen.
Yep.
Like, I get excited and cut people off a lot, but I'm like aware, I'm like, oh, sorry, I interrupted you. What were you going to say? I like try to be very cognizant of that. But when somebody's just steamrolling you and you're like, hey, you want me to leave you in a mirror alone so you two can have some privacy? Like, I feel like I don't even need to fucking be there. That drives me wild. Like, do you not care about anything I have to say? Are you you're not going to ask me one question? All right. Go ahead. Go off.
I think they don't even know that they're doing it, which then points to a lack of self-awareness, which is another disqualifying quality to a person where you're like, I can't do this with you if you don't even understand how your behavior is impacting other people and not even questioning it. It's the common denominator thesis where a person has all these problems in their life that they keep putting on other people, and it's like, yeah, but this seems to just happen to you, and it seems to happen to you all the time. So what's actually going on here?
It's such a delicate balance, because it's like, I love it when people listen and ask questions. But then there's the type of date you go on, and it's only them asking you questions like it's an interview.
Oh, I haven't gone through this. I feel like I'm always on the opposite end of this, where I'll go on a date and I'll ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I don't get none back, so he ends up talking about himself the whole time. And then he has such a great time because I just listened and didn't say anything.
That's usually what like ends up happening, where I'm keeping the conversation going and think it's like a unilateral responsibility on my part. But every now and then I'll like be like, oh, what about you? And they'd be like, I don't know. And then ask their next question. And I'm like, are you doing are you gathering data? Is this a census? Like, what's happening right now? You have nothing to contribute to this conversation. And I'm like, ooh, that just means this person's boring and knows that they're boring and have nothing to say, but also knows that they're supposed to be asking questions. So they only ask you questions, and then it feels like they're gathering intel.
Yeah, and then it is really job interviewee. That's just like he's reminding me how much I hate first dates.
Yeah, I went on a very job interviewee first date many months ago, and it was wild because then they were like, well, I noticed you say this a lot, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, are you commenting in real time? Like, on what's, are you processing this date in real time? It was such a turn. I was like, I've never felt more, I really just wanted to look this person in the eye and just be like, tell me about a time where you faced a challenge and persevered. Just ask them a real interview question and be like, thanks, we'll get back to you.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah, exactly. God. It's so devastating.
Do you have a physical type that you like?
No. I don't. Isn't that weird?
Oh, I like to hear that. I feel like I assume most people do.
That's funny. I've never had a type.
You're all over the place?
I'm all over the map.
Is that freeing?
Yeah.
That's great.
No, it's freeing. It's also stressful because you're like, that coat rack, is that my type? I saw a coat on a coat rack and I'm like, hey there, tall and handsome.
And dressed well.
Oh, it's my coat. Yeah, so like, obviously I'm kidding, I don't mate with inanimate objects, but I just, it's freeing, but then there is like a small amount of stress where you're like, if everyone is a potential, then you're like, but yeah, I keep an open mind and I go off vibes, which is why it's really hard to go on the apps, because like, you could have such a good conversation, or you could have such a good rapport, or somebody could look so good on paper, and then you meet them, and it's like, oof, the vibes be off.
Yeah.
And then, by the same token, there are people that I've had, like, an amazing time with, and I'm like, if I saw a picture of you, I'd be like, eh, and I wouldn't really think, you know what I mean? Like, if I just saw you on paper, I probably wouldn't look twice, but now that I see how you, like, actually interact, like, wow, that's so attractive. So it's just, like, it makes me sad to think, like, how many times we all must pass over somebody because we didn't quite get to pick up on their energy, and we just like tried to get the gist of it, and you know, whatever. I'm not going to be one of those people that's like, dating apps are ruined everything. It's like Jessica Marie Singleton, Jessica Michelle Singleton has a really funny bit where she's like, dating's always been bad, don't blame the apps. And she has like a whole thing about it. Look it up, it's great.
It's so true, and I've had that same thing happen where I've been really intrigued by someone in person because I liked their energy so much. And I know that if I had just seen a picture of that person, I wouldn't have been interested because they're not my quote-unquote type. And then the inverse hasn't happened, but it's happened in a way where it's like someone I think is so attractive and we have good rapport on the app, and then we meet in person and it's like,
yeah, totally. So you asked me my type. What's your type?
I like a pretty specific type, unfortunately, which I do wish I could kind of get away from. I love a reformed frat boy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I like a very clean-cut guy who I could tell, you know, probably he didn't drug anyone's drink in college, but, like,
but
he was friends with someone that did.
He definitely went to one of their weddings.
He definitely did, but he knows better now, and he's now very much figured out that, you know, therapy is good and self-help is good. Just reformed frat boy. So I think it's pretty telling what I mean by that. And then just as far as what I'm attracted to, I feel like I'm constantly attracted to physically the opposite of me. So I like a Paul Walker was my celebrity crush. So a guy that has like the opposite features of me. I like a man that sunburns easily.
It's funny. Yeah, it's so funny. I like almost wish I had a type, because then I could at least, but.
I've dated people that are not my type though too, and it's because I've been attracted to their energy where I'm like, you're not quintessentially what I would have picked out for myself. So I still like to say I'm open, but I think if I built someone from scratch, he'd probably
Which
look a
we
certain
will
way.
be able to do very soon.
Very soon. Can't wait. Yeah, budgeting for it.
Yeah. Oh man, wait. There was something I don't want to dwell too much on it. I was like, we were talking about green flags. It's okay.
yeah.
It left me, so I'll think of it eventually. But have you been on it? Have you been on any? We don't have to talk about this too.
We
can cut this out. I feel like I'm becoming like the editor.
I went on so few dates last year that I've probably already talked to. I only went on 3 dates, and oddly enough, 2 of them were like back-to-back days. It was like a Wednesday and a Thursday in the same week. And then the one other date I had went on last year was like pretty early in the year, and that guy was not traditionally my type, but I met him and just like thought he was cool in person and went with it. But I mean, obviously, none of them worked out.
Every time I go to a foreign country, I feel like I'm in love with everybody.
Same. What is that?
I was just in France in November, and I was just like, why is everyone, male and female, like the hottest, coolest person in the world? Like, I was...
This is Europe.
It was so... I loved it. And, man, when I was in law school, all of the master's program people are foreign. If you get it's called an LLM. And I just, like, had a crush on everybody. I was like, all of these foreigners are... all of these knows, like, something legal, something, I don't actually remember what. I was just like, they're the best. They're so fun, and they're like, they will tell you what's wrong with Americans. One of my favorite things that one of them said was like, yeah, you know what we do not understand about you Americans? You meet somebody once and you're like, hey, this is my friend. It's like, how do you know? I just met you. I'm not your friend. And I'm like, oh, you're right. We kind of do that. Like, we're just be like, oh, this is my friend. Just like somebody you've met a couple times. Mm-hmm. Whereas, like, apparently in, like, France or Germany, if you say this is my friend, it's like, I vouch for this person as a human being. Oh. Which is, like, and, like, this is a person I really associate with.
It's a higher level of intimacy.
Yeah, or just, like, a higher level of, of knowledge of a person, which is so funny.
They're probably correct in that, I'm sure. I try, depending on what the conversation is and what the context is, whether it's important that I'm saying that person is my friend or not.
Right.
But I will try to differentiate if someone's an acquaintance and I feel like it's important that I say that, I will.
Yes. Love being like, this is my work friend. I'm just kidding.
Or when I'm not close to someone, you know what I'll say? I'll go, that's my buddy.
Yeah,
I'll call someone a buddy.
I've done that
I'll
before.
be like, that's my comedy buddy.
Yeah. No, I've done the exact same thing where I'm like, oh, a comedy bud of mine, and don't want to, like, vouch too hard.
Yeah, like I wouldn't bail him out of jail.
Yeah. Interesting. That is a good metric. I'd bail you out of jail. I think we're there.
You out of jail.
Aww.
I think neither of us need that service.
Hopefully not. You and I both are like, we can't lose our licenses.
Yeah.
That's funny. That's a good metric, is like, would you bail? There are always people who are like, oh, who's that person you can call at 4 a.m? And I'm like, I don't actually. I have plenty of people I try to call at 4 a.m, and they probably would have their phone on silent. So I don't know if I can call anyone at 4 a.m. Do you have a 4 a.m. friend?
I feel like I would be way too self-conscious to call someone at 4 a.m.
Same.
That whatever the situation would be, I would try to figure out a way to not bother them. And then same, even my phone is on Do Not Disturb from like, I don't even want to tell what hours. I don't want to put it out there what hours it's on Do Not Disturb, but it's definitely on Do Not Disturb.
None of your business, listeners.
Yeah.
That's funny. I need to draw better phone boundaries.
It's tough.
I respond immediately to everything like a chump. Like a fucking simp. I'm so prompt in my communications.
I can see that.
In general.
Are you trying to work on that?
Yeah. I'm getting better at, like, and it's not like, it's just one of those things where, like, I like to just get it out of my mind. I don't like being like, oh, I gotta text that person back. Mm-hmm. So 9 times out of 10, I'll just try to respond pretty immediately, just so that I don't have to think about, like, oh yeah, I gotta get back to that person. Of course, every now and then, I'll, like, see something, or, like, see somebody's text and be like, oh, I don't have, like, the mental wherewithal to, like, give them a complete response. So I'll do that, and then I forget, you know? but it's like precisely because I don't want to forget. But then I really give off this like, I'm available anytime, like bother me whenever energy. Which, according to the law of attraction, is, you know, what's happening. Do you believe that, like, I read something interesting that the Esther Abraham Hicks said that you need to be focusing, like, people focus on one of two things that's not good. It's either they focus on the lack of something, like, oh, I don't have a partner, or they'll focus on what they don't want, like, I don't want a partner who's controlling. And when you focus on what you don't want or the lack of what you do want, that's going to keep you in a, you know, sort of status quo, and what you need to be thinking about and attracting and being grateful in advance for is what you do want. And that's really interesting because I do think I've been being like, I want somebody who's not this. And it's like, you can't ask for not this. You have to ask for that. Does that make sense?
It does. I think I'm decent. I definitely wasn't as far as life circumstances, maybe not partnerships, because I don't manifest in the love department. I just go, oh, I'm obsessed with that guy, so I'm just gonna fucking take a crack at it and shoot my shot, and I'm currently running a long game on a crush.
Oh, nice. I'm not gonna ask you too many specifics, but what does it look like when you shoot your shot?
Oh, well, I DM.
Oh, okay. It'd like be like, hey, you want to get a coffee or something?
I don't DM that like that, but I'll DM to try to start a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not good at, I won't invite someone to do something, but I will just be like, hey, you're hot, what's up?
But you'll say, hey, you're hot, what's up?
I have.
That's nice, I like that. It depends on who it is. Every now and then, like, sometimes I will be like, oh, we should get a coffee or a drink or something casually, and then sometimes I'll be like, well, I made a joke and he laughed. That's me flirting. I shot my shot, and people are like, Chrissy, you were just being yourself. And I will think I put myself out there, and I did not at all, and I'm like, I'm basically humiliating myself for this person, you know, and then I'll like retreat, and it's like, Chrissy, you didn't even do anything. I gave Julia Stone my texts to have her like Monday morning quarterback in exchange, and she was like, Chrissy, you dropped the ball. I was like, no, I didn't. She's like, yeah, you did. I was like, ah. So every now and then it's like, it's really hard to know whether you're embarrassing yourself or not with like, but when you're reading somebody else's texts, it's just like, it's nice to have an objective person who's like not invested in the situation.
Although all my friends are so supportive that I feel like when I'm being delulu about my crushes, they're just like, yeah, girl, go for it. And I'm like, are you sure?
I mean, I agree. What are we doing? We're all gonna die. Like, just
that's
shoot
how
our
I
shot.
feel. Yeah, I'm like, we're all gonna die. It's okay. And even though it won't blatantly, like, I'm trying to think, if I'm straight up saying, hey, you're hot, or something along those lines, it's because I don't care and don't want it to turn into a relationship. I'm just looking to maybe, like, have a fling or something with that person. But I don't know, if it's like someone I really like and I'm potentially interested in something more serious, then I'll play like a long game and try to be, which is so silly.
No.
Now that I'm saying it out loud, I'm like, I shouldn't be trying to impress anyone. They should just be impressed at who I already am. I shouldn't be like going out of my way, but I'll like try to be funny or try to make like a really smart comment.
I honestly thought that I would just attract people by simply being very intelligent.
Does that not work?
And people would just be like, wow.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a lawyer, it didn't really work. People were like, she looks like she's a lot of work. My friend was like, don't put attorney on your bio. Men get intimidated by that. I was like, well, I don't want a man that would be intimidated by that.
Yeah. This is the Miranda Sex and the City flight attendant thing all over again?
100%. That episode resonated so hard with me because when I took off attorney, I got more responses.
Wow.
I was like, ugh.
That's
look
devastating.
at all these cucks
Yeah.
who can't stand a strong woman.
Right, they should be stoked that you're an attorney because it says so
That's
much.
like not even how you use the word cuck. I was trying to think of like a fratty term.
They're cucking themselves.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh God, you've seen that like meme that's like, if Sex and the City were made right now, Miranda would be the main character, not Carrie.
I haven't seen that particular meme, but that makes sense.
You know, and it's like, yeah, she's the one. She's the one I always resonated with, and everyone's like, really, she's the worst one. It's It's like, then I guess I'm the worst.
Yeah. I think Carrie's the worst one.
Yeah, I agree. I think I can't believe, she's such a quintessential 90s protagonist in that she's the most problematic person.
It's so true.
The most selfish, problematic person there is.
I've rewatched it so many times, and you watch it back, and you're like, why would you treat your friends like this? Why would you treat your boyfriend like this? Like, what? Oh my God, what's happening here? She just will create drama out of absolutely nowhere, where we were just talking about this, can't self-regulate. It's like, Carrie, you need to learn to regulate. You don't need to run out on Aiden to have a secret cigarette. Like, really, keep it together, girl.
Season 3 was so good.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite season?
I don't know what my favorite season is. Because one, I think, is the funniest when the format was so all over the place and they would do those little one-on-one, like, quips with the guys on the street.
Love a sloppy pilot.
Yeah.
Love. Hindsight, and you're just looking back, and you're like, wow. Because, like, if you think about it, I was just talking with Lynn Molly about this, how, like, first, let me just say, for the record, Mad Men is one of the greatest shows alive. It is the best show. I love it so much. I've seen it all of the seasons, like, 3 times. But if you look back at the pilot, it looks like dog shit compared to the rest of the... And that's just like that. That's because they made this one episode and filmed it before they knew it was going to take off, and they didn't have the budget, and this episode was filmed months, if not years, before the rest of season 1. And so, like, you look back and I was like, God, why does The Office look so crappy? And, like, why is her hair, like, and why does everyone look so dewy and sweaty? And, like, you know, and it's just funny to look back and see how they didn't quite hit their groove yet. And, of course, you can't expect anyone to hit their groove and hit the right tone and get into that swing of things, like, first season 1, episode 1. But it's, like, so fun to look at in hindsight. I remember when I watched Sex and the City, like, rewatched it for the first time and forgot. I was like, what? They're to the camera confessionals?
Yeah, they stopped doing that pretty quickly. I wonder if it was season 3 or if it was 4. It was around that time. There was one season where the show all of a sudden got really funny. And I didn't notice it until the rewatch, where I'm like, oh, they must have changed the writer's room for this episode because all of a sudden it's hilarious.
Oh, do you remember what it is? Do you remember what that was?
I'm trying to think of... Oh, you know what? It's whatever season is the episode where Miranda gets addicted to sweets and she, like, has to pour dish detergent all over her, like, brownie mix, and she has to call Carrie, and Carrie's fucking the jazz musician, and Miranda's like, just letting you know that you're gonna have to check on me when I'm in the Betty Crocker clinic. Like, that whole season, there's funny. A lot of humor. Yeah. There's humor even then with, like, the Big and the jazz player and the Carrie dynamic. Like, Charlotte does some funny stuff. There's all of a sudden humor in that season.
Yeah, like real jokes.
Yeah, that season is my favorite, whichever one it is.
Ooh. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I was also not expecting Wicked to have, like, those types of moments. I know you haven't seen it yet, but there are moments of humor that surprised me, where I was like, oh, this is very funny.
Yeah, I wonder, what is the public take on Ariana Grande now, past, like, husband thievery? Because that's really a chink in her armor right there.
I think that, like, for whatever reason, America and the world has forgiven both Cynthia and Ariana for all past sins. They've just, like, Wicked has covered a multitude of sins. Wicked is their salvation. It is their Jesus Christ that has absolved them of all sins. Honestly, I have not engaged that much in the discourse particularly about her, but it was very weird to watch the movie, and especially because he plays a munchkin, and he plays, like, a very deliberately unattractive or, like, undesirable character, and so we watching it, I was like, him? But of course, you know, that's obviously because the movie made it like that. I'm not casting judgment on, you know, her choice of partner or whatever, but I didn't actually realize that there was a husband thievery going on.
Yeah, so he had been married to his high school sweetheart, and they had just had a baby when, as the media puts it, again, I don't know the truth, but the media spin on it was that Ariana, like, stole him.
You know, they always blame the woman.
They do. That's true. That's a good... Thank you for pointing that out to me, because here I am buying into that.
Yeah.
And totally putting the onus on Ariana as opposed to the married man who should have
I would say,
not
like,
cheated on his wife.
if there is an onus, it certainly should more be on him than her. You know, she didn't, you know, make a vow to uphold that marriage. However, you know, like, I'm not saying it's okay to interfere with marriages or anything, but it is funny how we posit it as she stole him, as if he were an item that had no free will of his own.
Right.
You know, it's like, well, he could have also just not. But, man, I wonder how it's easy to cast aspersions when no famous person has ever been in love with me. Like if a really attractive famous person who was talented and lovely was after me, and then I wonder how I would act. Luckily, we'll never have to worry about that.
I would love to worry about that.
Who's your celebrity crush?
Henry Cavill.
Wow, you said that so quickly.
Because it's so easy. It's such an easy
He's very
answer.
handsome.
I would drain his balls till there was nothing left.
You heard it here first. Straight from the tap. Oh my god.
Yeah.
This is a better question. What is your most perverse celebrity crush? That, like, you're not supposed to be attracted to this person?
Ooh. Oh my god, I love this question. While I think about it, do you have an answer?
Yes.
Please.
Everyone made fun of me in high school. Everyone made fun of me in law school because my perverse celebrity crush is Gary Oldman.
Oh, I love Gary Oldman.
I was just like, I have a sexual crush on Gary Oldman, and I don't care who knows it.
I love that. That's amazing.
And I love his, like, dirty, hot vibes as Sirius Black. That was just, like, weird. I don't know. I was just like, I think he's so hot.
That's amazing. Oh, God.
People were like, ew, Christy. And I was like, I don't care who knows it. I like that question so much more than who's your celebrity crush.
It's such a better question, and I'm kicking myself for not having an obvious answer. Who have I, like, guiltily that I wouldn't tell people about? Because everyone I like, I think, is just... All my celebrity crushes are, like, pretty generically attractive. Like, I love Joe Burrow.
Who's that?
He's the Bengals quarterback.
Oh.
He's got, like, a baby face. Little cherub baby face.
So funny. Wow, talking to you is making me realize how little of a type I have.
Yeah.
I just like everybody.
That's good. Who the hell? I'm trying to think if there's even like a TV show. Is there any... No, I don't know. I mean, is it wrong to lust after a gay man? I don't know.
No, not at
Matt
all.
Bomber, but he's gay.
But it's so funny, when you said Henry Cavill, I was like, oh, I would go Matt Bomber over Henry Cavill, because I think Matt Bomber is slightly more attractive and has, like, more...
They look so similar.
They do, but Matt Bomber has so much more je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, and then I freaking love Bill Skarsgård, who like always is cast in creepy roles. Like he was he was Pennywise, you know.
Yeah,
I did think he's so creepy hot.
Yes, absolutely, very creepy hot.
God, I have such a type though.
That is a genre.
Yeah.
Skarsgård of all of them that is like the least fratty though.
True.
It's very funny that you brought up. Sorry, circling back, and I'm not going to let you off the hook for. I want you to think about it.
Yeah.
And we can pause. The good thing about this is you could think about this, and we could just do a quick like several hours later. The SpongeBob thing. But while you're thinking about that, I'm trying to work on this bit about how. But the Charlotte putting soap on her brownie batter, because somebody did that, or rather, like a waitress. This is the bit basically. Like, I think that if you live in LA long enough, you will develop some sort of issue with food, but you won't even notice it because everyone else has one too.
Well, because we just call it fad diets. We go, I'm keto this week.
Yeah, exactly, and it's super normalized, and I got this like full force. Like, I grew up here, so like I always kind of knew that, but like I was never like a full blown adult here because I left when I was shortly before my 18th birthday for, and then when I came back as an adult to live here, like, a couple years ago, I was like, wow! And I found this out, like, I went to a cafe and I asked the waitress, hey, how's the carrot cake? And she was like, oh my god, the carrot cake here is so good. I get it all the time. Sometimes I order it and I have to throw it in the trash and pour bleach on it so I don't fish it out and eat it.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that is that Miranda moment.
And I was like, that's not a recommendation.
She shouldn't tell
That's an
people
eating
that.
disorder. And I, like, looked at her and I was like, I'll get the carrot cake. It was so wild. But the joke is, like, I like to imagine that she first tried lemon pledge, but it added a yo no sé qué to the flavor profile of the cake, and she's like, I need to to bleach because it's poison. Is that wild? And I'm like, I can't believe you admitted that to me. I just met you 2 seconds ago and you were like, hi, do you have any questions about the menu? That's foreplay in LA, and the flirtation is like just trading eating disorder descriptions.
Funny. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Eating disorder stuff.
That's also like a weird turnoff for me, is when men are like really, really into like fitness fad diets, and like I think it's important to like be healthy and to care about what you put in your body and to move your body and move around, but when it becomes like obsessive, that's weird.
Yeah.
The longest relationship I ever had, the person was like every month there was like a new health thing.
Yeah.
It was really, and like in hindsight I'm like, oh, the person had an issue.
It's in disordered eating for sure.
Yeah. And like, look, join the club, like who doesn't? But it just became like a weird, I don't know, for me it's kind of like when, like, sorry that I'm now just like telling you jokes I am working on / used to, but like I used to do this joke, I don't really tell anymore, I don't really, whatever, but like anytime I saw on a dating app where somebody's interests are fitness, I'm like, I know that that's code for no fat chicks, because if you really had an interest, it'd be like pickleball, weightlifting, tennis, basketball, surfing. The concept of fitness is I'm interested in you not being a fat ass, and I hold myself to not being a fat ass, so you don't be one either. And I'm just like, nope, I'm not gonna have somebody that's gonna complain about me gaining 3 pounds.
It's only white men that are obsessed with living longer too, by the way.
Yeah,
Nobody else wants
Nobody's
to stick
trying
around
to live
longer
forever.
than they
But
have to.
I've seen enough. Only the people with the highest form of privilege, white men, are like, you know what? I would love to do this for another few thousand years.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm like, you know what? I really do.
Yeah.
Like, let's give it 80, 85. That'd be a lovely life. 90. Oh my God, what a blessing. But like, seriously though, like, take me out, coach.
All the guys that are at the forefront of these types of sciences that are talking about them and that are talking about their NAD supplements, this and that, and anti-inflammation, this, and I'm like, why do you want to be here longer? I'm ready to tap out at a certain point. I don't want to keep doing this thing.
Right, and is that narcissism, like, the whole, like, there's this person, may or may not be the richest person in the world, but, like, has a lot of children and keeps, like, having kids and, like, thinking that there's, like, it's up to him to repopulate the universe or whatever, and it's, that's so narcissistic.
Yeah.
That's... Oh, here's we were talking about red and green flags. Huge red flags, Cybertruck.
Huge red
Or just
flag.
like...
Huge red flag, the biggest red flag.
Or just like being really obsessed with Elon Musk.
I just found out a guy I almost dated has a Cybertruck.
Oof. Dodged a 7,000-pound bullet. I don't know, how much they weigh. Somebody in my neighborhood has a Cybertruck, and one time I was taking a walk around the neighborhood and somebody had drawn a dinosaur and then a big penis on it and then wrote SpaceX next to the penis, and
Incredible.
I laughed so hard I took a photo of it, and I'm like, I'm going to use this for a show promo.
That's so good.
I'm so excited. It was like really fun to see somebody deface
A Cybertruck.
a Cybertruck.
Yeah, I'm so publicly anti-Cybertruck.
Did you see my post recently where I saw a 18-wheeler
Oh, with
hauling
the 3 bad things
in a
coming
row?
threes. Yes, that was so good.
And I saw it and I was like, boo! I rolled down my window.
I've actually now trained myself to reflexively go "Bleh" when I see a Cybertruck. I can't not do it. It feels like the way that maybe people are compelled to like salute a soldier. I go when I see a Cybertruck. I can't help it. I feel like it has to happen. It's like gravity.
It's so funny. Explain.
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Gee. I think that no matter what I love about friends and people that I'm like would like in my life, whether it's like romantic or friendship, just this constant understanding that like we are here to connect and we're here to grow. And so like when people are really into self-development and self-improvement, I really fucks with them, because I'm like, yeah, let's try to be better together. But really counters the whole I am enough thing, you know?
We gotta find balance.
I know we gotta find balance. I was talking to my therapist, and you're like, can we wrap up? And I'm like, yeah, I was talking to my therapist. Launches into 20 minutes. No, my therapist was like, you know, you need to like really try to tap into this whole like feeling that you're enough. And I was like, would you say to a plant that bloomed a beautiful flower, okay, that's enough. One bloom's fine. You don't need to keep growing. And then she,
touché.
Yeah, and then she goes, if I enjoyed the bloom, then yes. And I was like, I was not prepared for that. So anyway, everyone, you think about that on your drive home from this podcast. That maybe one bloom is enough, and your life's work isn't to just continuously extend your life and never die, continuously like we're really no different in some ways than those types of people by thinking we need to always be leveling up at all times.
I agree.
So my final thoughts are ABI, always be improving, asterisk, but also you are enough.
That's beautiful. Christie Bahna, what are you doing and what are you up to? Where can people find out?
I have a podcast called Cleopatra, and Ms. Galina Rivina herself was also a guest on it. And then you can find me on socials at Autobahna, AUTOBAHNA. And that's me.
Amazing. Thank you for coming to do the show.
Thanks for having me. This was a blast.
This was such a blast. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Bye.
Bye.